Members, if I can draw your attention, the first item on the agenda is to elect a chair to community plan. There is a presumption at the minute, obviously. So we first seek a proposal for a chair of the committee. No?
I propose Councillor Benjamin Shaw.
Do we have a seconder?
Seconder.
Lots of seconders, that's great. All those in favour? Brilliant, I'll hand over to the.
Thank you very much. That brings us to item 2, which is to elect a vice chair of the community plan committee. Councillor Rhodes.
I suggest Dawn Clark.
Well, I was actually going to propose Alan Collier because I.
Well, I'm quite happy to be vice chair again, so maybe I'll second it.
I'll second it.
Seconded for Dawn at all?
Oh, I've just seconded that. Sorry, I decline.
Okay.
Let me on the door, thank you.
Okay, in that case, Councillor Foley's been proposed and seconded. All in favour?
Oh, I don't know.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
To receive apologies for absence. Have we had any?
Yeah, one. Councillor Dennis Strange-Francis can't attend, so send us apologies.
Brings us on to item 4, to note declarations of members' interests. Councillor Rhodes.
I want to declare I'm a member of the St Andrew's Church congregation, and as such, I will not be taking part in any debate around their grant application.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dunlop.
Member of the Twinning Association, item 9.1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor White.
Just a reminder, I'm not on this committee, so I'm not voting, that's why.
Okay. You feel free, I'm feeling generous. Item 5 is to confirm and sign the minutes of the community plan meeting held on the 15th of March. Would you like a couple of minutes, or are we happy to propose those? Councillor Clark, thank you.
Got a seconder?
Preferably.
Go on then.
Thank you, Councillor Walton. All in
Sorry,
favour?
I was away then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could it be noted that I'm abstaining because I wasn't present at the meeting in time?
I'll note it when I get my pencil back.
Item 6, public participation, period not exceeding 15 minutes for members of the public to ask questions or submit comments. We have no members of the public in attendance. Have we had any submissions?
No.
Okay. Item 7 then, to review the year-to-date financial position for the community plan committee. Anyone got any questions or comments? No. I'm going to assume that we're all happy with that then. That brings us on to item 8, which is to consider matters related to the grant applications received from. 8.1 is Rick Nick, and it's for a Little Shop of Horrors at £1,440. Councillor Rhodes.
From what I've read, I'd like to support this application because I think it is an amalgamation of the college, Lyceum Square Cultural Forum, and it will actually result in a production for parents or people to go and see. So I personally would like to support it, and they've raised quite a lot of money from other sources, which shows that they've got the backing of other people. So I personally would like to propose that we accept this grant, because I think it's going to look to staying up to 50 young people, which is quite a considerable amount of young people who are interested in the theatre. So I would like to propose that we accept this grant, but also like a rider that, as far as possible, it must be people from Crewe, because I know the college draws from a very wide range of areas. So I would like some specification that it is actually young people from Crewe and not just with a Crewe postcode.
Okay. Thank you very much. We've got a seconder for this one. Thank you, Councillor Clark. All in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? No, thank you. Brings us on to 8.2, which is the Cheshire Wildlife Trust for wonderful wildflowers at a cost of £2,400.
You just see on page 24 that I did go back to the list of questions that was raised by the councillors at the Grants Advisory Group. So page 24, it hopefully will help you decide.
Buckley.
I think the project looks like a good one, and I think what they're applying for the money for is a worthwhile thing to help the environment. The only little query I've got, and it might be my use of a calculator, when I was going through the total cost, and that's what was requested from the town council, I couldn't get it to add up to that figure at the bottom. It was only a couple of £100 either here or there, but every time I added it up, I didn't quite meet that there. Not that that's the be all and end all, but it like that's what we applied for and requested from Crewe Town Council. I can't get to it every time I try to it up, it comes to the different figures. So it's like,
I added all that.
Yeah, I see your point. It's right here, but Tess is right, it's not right here, is it? That doesn't add up. So you've got 2, 4, that's 1,000, 13, 18, 21. Oh yes, it was 24. So 2004. So is that the what?
So the 2,400 is fine.
Yeah,
that's the total cost.
Oh, I see. The 11
yeah.
ones.
I think they might have done times 6 instead of
yeah, I think
I got £100 out and £200 up, and oh yeah, I just like
it's your accounting brain, yeah. Does that affect anyone's decision?
As long as the 2,400 is right.
Well, that's it, but is that right? They quoted the right figures to request from town council. That was my only query. I've got that with the application.
Yeah, it could be £20 or so.
Yeah, potentially. Whether that's something that maybe just clarify with them, and then I don't know.
Yeah, no problem.
Maybe propose that if they clarify that can be
no
done by the officers. Agreed by the officers. Delegation, that's the one. Thank you.
Can I get a seconder for that, please?
Just the Heritage Lottery Fund, is that bit secured, or is that it's not got secured by it?
No, I don't think it is secured as yet.
So the project may not go ahead then?
Yeah,
it's got to be subject to secured funding, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Because £1,100 project, you can't do it with 2,000.
To my knowledge, at this point, it hasn't been secured. I did speak to them last week, and it hasn't been. They haven't said anything's changed. So, would you like me to check, Dawn?
Clark, if I may, if members are minded to award it, it could be awarded subject to confirmation of match funding.
Yeah.
So confirmation, to clarify the amounts and confirmation of match funding. Okay, no problem.
Everyone happy with that?
Yeah. So agreed on subject to leadership.
Apparently.
Yeah, okay.
8.3, which is St Andrew's Church for Dance to Health at an amount of £2,500.
Again, there were questions that came out of the grant advisory group, which are detailed on page 34, if it helps you simplify it.
Any questions or comments on that one?
It's just regarding not being sustainable without the funding. It's, you don't know how they're going to attempt to continue. And I was cautious about all the things that start and they end, and we've got, you know, those people are left sort of hanging that they, you know, they've done this and then, right, well, the funding's run out, so.
I wonder if the COVID recovery has got any sort of impact on that.
As far as I recall, it used to be that they paid a fee each, didn't they, to attend.
I think that's how it started off, yes.
Yeah. So, might be small nominal fee, but that's. Start from the beginning of the project. See how it falls up.
I think the positives are the elderly community, aren't they?
Would anyone like to propose it? Thank you, Councillor Coyley. Would anyone like to second it?
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Hogwood. All in favour? Thank you. That brings us to 8.4, which is Cheshire Fire and Rescue Service for the Crew Prince's Trust Programme and an amount of £900. Councillor Dunlop.
Yes, I would like to propose this one, Chair, because I think this is an excellent programme that we've been involved with over many years. As you will know yourself, because I know that when you were there, you were very much involved with these people, and I think they do an excellent job in town. So I'm certain proposes. Any questions?
Yeah, completely agree. The last group of young people I met turned up to their community project and they could barely string a sentence together.
Yeah.
Turned up to their awards evening, different group of people.
Couldn't agree with you on that.
Couldn't speak to 10 people when I met them, spoke to 200 when I saw them last. Would anyone like to second this one? Thank you, Councillor Walton. All in favour? Lovely, thank you. That brings us on to 8.5, which is crew licensing theatre for the crew licensing theatre young ambassadors at an amount of 2,450.
Again, there were quite a few questions on this one raised at the Grants Advisory Group, and if you go to page 49, those questions are detailed with answers. So.
Councillor Rhodes.
In some respects, I think this is a really good project because you're giving work experience to young people. And I can understand the need for a support member of staff because really safeguarding wise, it's not really acceptable for a single member of staff on their own. Again, my question is, how do we guarantee them from crew? Because again, people from a wide area visit the licensing theatre. People from a wide area ask for, work experience at the theatre. So it's actually, the theatre guarantee that the people they're helping, like we know with the Cheshire Fire Service, we know that they're helping people from Crewe because they're actually advised to go there by various agencies. But I don't see that same kind of guarantee for this Lyceum Theatre one. Although I think it's a really good project. I want some guarantee that it's disadvantaged children from Crewe that are being using that service, not somebody travelling in from Audland or some similar place. But you know, I'm willing to propose it. I just want some guarantees about who will actually be targeted.
Would you like me to go back to them and just clarify that for you?
Yeah, my concern is for a lot of these things, because they draw from such a wide area, it's very easy to be giving in this case work experience to people who genuinely want the work experience but probably don't come from Crewe.
It says they have links to a huge number of local schools.
Yeah.
Work closely with them. And the college and Thomas More. I know the college draws children from that side of the area. Thomas More School.
So I think the thing is there. I think it's there in the application, but I would want the application. And as I said, I'm willing to propose it, but I just want the guarantee that it will be people from Crewe.
Thank you very much, Town Clerk.
Perhaps to returning if members are minded to support it, the grant offer coming through, of course, that confirmation is given that the award benefits young people who live in Crewe.
Okay.
If that satisfies everyone, could we get a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Walton. All in favour? Thank you. That brings us on to 8.6, which is Youth Federation of Cheshire for bringing young people back together in Crewe, and it's an amount of £2,435. Councillor Rhodes.
Sorry to be the one to keep speaking.
Please break the silence.
I've got a lot of concerns about this. From what I read, we're looking at 100 young people for an afternoon of fun, and I'm being told that an afternoon of fun is going to reduce ASB. Well, I'm a bit long in the tooth to believe that an afternoon of fun is going to solve ASB. We're not, or I couldn't read, and other people might have read a bit differently to me, that how these children are going to be selected, or young people are going to be selected. And this is going to be in Queen's Park, which is an open public space. So how are you going to, again, I couldn't read in the application, and it might be that, how are you going to prevent other people who are entitled to use the park actually joining in this event? So I think Youth Federation do a lot of good work with young people, but I'm not sure this event is what I would class as something that's going to tackle long-term ASB. But I don't know what other people think.
I agree with Councillor Rhodes that it doesn't actually say what the long-term benefits where they're going to actually feed these 100 people, young people into. So they're going to engage them, but it doesn't say, well, afterwards they'll, you know, there'll be this youth club, or we're going to engage them in this different activities. So, well, you know,
presumably they want them to go to their own, because they do. They obviously have a whole range of programs. So whether they're looking at this as a possible taster, I don't know. I mean, I think it goes wider than it being 100 young people, because, you know, you have to think about families and carers and guardians, and, you know, the potential for this project is unlimited to a degree, or indeterminate.
I'm going to come back. I just don't see an afternoon of fun in the park as something that's going to have a lasting effect. I think you're right, if it's a taster session, yeah, but we all know that, as you said from the fire authority, that you need a continuous meeting, and I don't see this. If they submitted a different project which wasn't an afternoon of fun, but was actually identifying young people and working with them, I wouldn't have any issue with it.
Are you sure it's not just because you'd like to go?
Oh yes, I love Quidditch.
For the fact that you could even say that. Councillor Edwards.
I was just reading about how it's intended to inform or educate people about positive opportunities. Perhaps if they could provide some detail on the programme, not just the events, the games and the sports aspect, but also the information they might be providing on the day. Might ease concerns.
Yeah, but my major concern is safeguarding 100 young people in Queen's Park, which is an open public space. If it was being held somewhere where you could monitor who was coming in and out of it, again, I would be less concerned.
And we do have the fact that Cheshire Community Foundation, £4,500, doesn't say it's actually been secured, so we're challenging it on the previous application that's subject to funding being secured. Then we've got to do the same with this one, so we should have caution.
If I've misinterpreted, I wonder if members might want to defer this application and seek that the applicant provides detailed safeguarding associated with holding an event of this scale in an open public park and group, and also what the outrun legacy plan is for a one-off event and the added value that it could offer.
I would like to propose that we defer.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes. Thank you, Councillor Buckley. All in favour?
So defer to
the next
17th December, September.
You defer until you receive the,
okay, so
the
not
additional
the next.
information.
Okay.
It might be the next, but
the 17th of September is the event, that was all, so it'd be too late then, won't it? But I'll seek the information if I can before. Okay.
This makes them more inclined to get the information to you.
Yeah, sure. I just want to be clear.
All right. That brings us to 8.7, which is the wishing well for supported adult services outbound activities at an amount of £2,215.68. Councillor Clark.
The work that they've been doing with adults, Woodland, is brilliant at what they're doing. These are all, it's sustainable. This is all equipment which is going to be there for others in future years to have the benefit of. So it's not just a one-off.
Yeah.
This is building up equipment, and from what I believe it's will be the first time in quite a number of years that these people have been able to take a holiday or a respite from their families. So it's not just the young adults who supported adults who are going to get the benefit, it's actually the families who are going to get the benefit from it as well. So we're supporting a wider community as well. And as well as having this equipment, which I'm sure, knowing the ethos of wishing well, if other groups came to and said, "Can we borrow?" They would, they would more than allow them to borrow the equipment. So.
Yeah, no, thank you, Councillor Rhodes.
I support the principle that it is offering the opportunity to go camping and respite for families. I'm not really happy with buying sleeping bags because I see them as personal items. And I know it's nitpicking, but I do. I know the cost of having a sleeping bag dry cleaned and it's not cheap. So I think I've got things like that. And I think an 8-man tent, I'm not sure how that fits safeguarding wise. I know there will be ideas around this because scouts and guides and so on go camping. So I know there will be rules and regulations about that. But again, it doesn't really take away from the principle of it and the fact that it can be used again. But I would like to know that from a safeguarding point of view, they're meeting all the necessities. Because I think, I don't know, maybe you might know, Councillor Clark, about what the safeguarding is around size of tents and number of people in tents and things like that.
As far as it says sleep for 10, but I think the intention is that there'll only 2 or 3 of the supported adults with a one-to-one support officer who will actually go. So it's not all 8 going.
No, they're
with
going
just
at
2
separate.
adults.
So
Yeah, but they're saying they want to buy an 8-man tent.
That's to give the room just to sort of, you know, so they're not all cross, because some supported adults have that claustrophobia, you know, so it's to ensure that they have that space to actually.
They're actually staggering these, so the site that they're going to use is in Wen, so it isn't too far away from, obviously, if there's an issue, and they're staggering the young adults, so they're not taking them all at once, they're taking them sort of, I think they're there for a week, and they're taking sort of 2 at a time so that they cross over, but they're not all staying at the same time because of safeguarding and all the things you mentioned.
Yeah. Well, I would second Councillor Clark's proposal. Apart from that, I would like some reassurance around sleeping bags, because for me, that is something that, you know, they should be providing. So I see that as personal, but.
Just on the Councillor Dunlop.
Sorry, just on the point of sleeping bags, you can't buy sleeping bag liners.
Yeah, true.
So what you do is the person sleeps on the sleeping bag in the liner, and when they finish with the sleeping bag, so remove the liner, and they can either loan the liner or, you know, well, the reason I go that is because my son does it. He has something like 30 odd tents that he uses for school children, and what he does is he provides the liner, and each child next morning or whatever returns the liner, and he loans them at a reasonable cost. So I mean, I really say because if you're sharing a sleeping bag, you can't buy, and they're not expensive. These liners that he definitely uses, and so that would overcome that one.
Yeah, and I'm sure the project, if we said, well, would fund it except for sleeping bag, I'm sure that they would, they find their own way to buy their own sleeping bag to save with them.
Would you like me to find out specifically about the sleeping bags and whether or not they are going to provide liners? Because they might be anyway, mightn't they? And then if they are going to provide liners, we can fund it, or how would you like me to go back to them?
So, I mean, I'm happy to now Councillor Dunlop has explained to me about how you reuse the sleeping bags without having to have them dry cleaned. Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Okay.
So, but I would like, you know, obviously the young people themselves will have to provide that liner, or wishing well will have to find some money to provide that.
Okay,
thank you.
Right, so the application's had a proposer and a second. If everyone's satisfied with that, are we all in favour? Lovely, thank you. Brings us on to the next one, which is CAP Community Radio CRC for an advertising board at Crewe Alex FC at an amount of £1,200.
Don't get this at all. I don't get this at all. Why can't Crewe Alex just pay for it?
Controversial suggestion. Town clerk.
If I may, before we enter into too much debate, I apologise for jumping in, members. Our council, which I think will be landing very welcome, is council concern about this application based on someone else's advertising does not seem to fit in the principle of a community grant scheme in any way, shape or form. And I would counsel that it's declined.
I think that's what Councillor Coyley said just last.
I just remember that these meetings get recorded.
Well, I would propose what the clerk said, that we decline this.
Oh, can I propose we give the 1,200 to the Crewe Alex so we can get some more players?
Oh,
no, but if you want to second, if you want to second the actual proposal, I'll take that.
Go on.
Thank you, Councillor. All in favour? Thank you.
The next one has been withdrawn today. We found out at the last minute that they are in fact going through a process of becoming constituted, but they are not fully constituted yet. So I spoke to Gemma this morning, who runs the group, and she would like to resubmit the application in the next round of grant applications in September. So it's been done.
If she does submit, that we could have a breakdown of how the money's going to be spent, rather than just a blank total.
Yeah.
Right. Fair enough. That brings us to item 9, which is member items. We'll start with 9.1, which is twinning, and Councillor Dunlop.
Thank you, Chairman. Our last meeting, it was agreed that we arranged with the Twinning Association to establish support required. To this end, I invited the chairman of the association to a meeting with Jackie and the chair, Ben, of course, to discuss what was required from the council. We raised 2 points that I think will be worth looking at tonight. He explained that in the past it had been Crewe and Nantwich Borough Council that was part of the twinning with the 2 countries, Germany and Poland. But this was no longer the case, as of course the Crewe and Nantwich Borough Council no longer exists. So it would be appropriate for the town council to sign a new friendship agreement with both towns, as both towns are very keen to continue with the twinning agreements that they have with us. Later this month, in conjunction with this, I'm actually going to Germany for a ceremony to mark 30 years of twinning of the 2 towns and the connections with our own town. So what I would like to propose is, on the first point that Clyde, the chairman, raised with the meeting Jackie, Ben and I had, was that we signed or agreed to sign a twinning agreement of friendships with these 2 towns. So I'm going to propose that if one would second that for me, and we can then move on.
Somebody speak at once.
I'm happy to propose it out in the county before we can.
Town clerk.
Mayor, proposal seconded. For clarity, that would be ratification of council to make that authorised.
Propose that it's recommended.
Right. The second point that he raised was support for the association. That this has been available in the past. Now, I don't know what the arrangements were in the past because I wasn't here. So again, it would work out that if we have any visitors come to the town from Germany, Poland, or France, because we're also between with France, a separate issue. My understanding is that the Twinning Association, when they invite people here to the town, they take care of their own expense to get here. They take care of their own expense for accommodation, which is generally put up by people in the Twinning Association. But the Twinning Association has no funds, or not specific funds, to entertain these said people. Now, in a couple of weeks' time, as I said, I'm going to Germany for a 30-year ceremony. Now, the cost that I'm having to bear is just my transport to get me there. Other than that, I'm being put up by a family in Germany. I don't know who yet, but apparently they've done it all before, so they're quite used to it. Probably never had a George stay before, so it might be interesting in the conversation. But on a serious note, I mean, I'm being told that I will have no expense other than my transport costs. So when I'm there, I'm going to be looked after, based, that's what I'm saying. I'm not necessarily going to be winding night, but I'm certainly going to be looked after. And all of the other people who will come in for this award, the first event, will be getting exactly the same. What I'm proposing is that if, which is quite possible, that when I'm over there, we will be inviting these people to come back over here, because what I'm going to should have actually taken place here last year in this town. And what I did then, if you probably don't recall, on the budget line, there was a budget line of £2,000 set aside to cover any costs for, I say entertainment, I mean, you know, meals and that kind of thing. So this time what I'm going to suggest to you is, or what I'm going to ask is, would you consider putting a fund of £1,000 to the organisation so that they can take care of entertaining our guests, rather than someone saying, well, we're going to do this and it's going to cost that. And Cantor, as they're called, are quite happy to take on board the looking after our guests, if you like. What we don't have is the necessary funds. So what I was going to suggest was that we fund or put aside £1,000, give the £1,000 to Cantor, just like we would any other organisation, like as an award. Obviously, we would want to know before what we're going to do with the money. For example, we could set up, or we should certainly set up a service level agreement with the association so we know exactly what their intentions are. But as I say, it's quite possible that the people from Germany and Poland could well be here in July. I'm not saying they are coming, but certainly there has been a suggestion that they may be coming over. So it would really be helpful if we could have some sort of idea as to where how you feel about that particular aspect of this. I assume now it will have to go to full council again. No, so this one does not go to full council. This can be done here.
Town clerk.
Based on the second proposal of providing financial support for the organisation Cantor, which is a local twin organisation, for the, I'm going to use the word hosting rather than entertaining. Okay, so that's the word hosting visitors from our twin towns. That level of funding is well within the delegation of this committee, subject to your availability within your budgets, which we can, so on this sheet, you need to do that right now, or we can leave that delegation for us to sort out. And that would, as Councillor Dunlop has said, will be on a service level agreement with Cantor to provide that hosting of any guests from our twin towns. If you then, I would advise, if you then feel this is something in your mind to keep going for part of the town's civic heritage, then perhaps as we go through the budget setting process, which we're about to start for 2023-24, it's very exciting. You might want to throw a figure into that, so that's then doesn't require a constant discussion of the year.
And Twitch Town Council providing any support?
Sorry?
And Twitch Town Council providing any support?
My understanding, Dawn, before I answer the question, my understanding is yes, they are. I don't know what sort of agreement they have in mind, but I don't wish to be pedantic or awkward or anything, but I'm not really interested in what Nantwich is doing.
I am, because it's Crewe and Nantwich Trimming Association, so it's, you know.
Well, no.
I can clarify this in that Crewe do Crewe, Nantwich do Nantwich.
So I think one of the things that needs to be on the agreement is that it's specifically for Crewe, not for Nantwich.
It doesn't work well when we try and do it together.
What bill comes over in July is engineering students who are actually go to Rees Heath and do sort of shadowing them on weeks at Rees Heath, which is Nantwich. And there's like
they do come to the municipal.
Well, yes, but you know, I've been there clearing up after them. But again, there are also activities because they come over for Nantwich Show Week and etc. So, which is hence the question: if we're hosting, we want to be hosting those events and showcasing engineering in, you know, the UTC, the Bentley Motors, you know. Crewe engineering works, not Rees Heath and
in previous instances we have more or less insisted that if they are coming to Crewe, they come to Crewe, and that's what we cover.
Sorry, Don, that's what I meant when I said, of course I'm interested in what Nantwich is doing, but what I meant was this is specifically for us, this is our
hosting of events in Crewe, I think that.
I mean, when we did when the Ukraine thing stopped, the Ukraine war stopped, I mean, we signed, or I signed, a letter of cooperation with the other two towns supporting Ukraine. Our letter had gone, was published and everything. Nantwich were having a meeting about whether they should sign the letter or not. So, sorry, Dawn, what I meant was, I want this specifically to be what we do. And as far as Canada's concerned, they're sort of caught between a rock and a hard place, because in Germany and Poland, as far as they're concerned, Crewe was just still exactly as it was. And they don't quite, I mean, I'm sure that this,
No, I'm sure they don't get it, you know. But,
Not sure any of us do either.
well, that's a debate for 1970, so if we really want to go that. Yeah, I just want, you know, conscious that, and I've supported counter events in the past, and know a lot of them do not take place in solely in Crewe, that they're all over the Crewe and Nantwich and the rural areas. So if Crewe Town Council is funding it, then what hosting should that funding need to ensure that it's spent within the Crewe town and helps the economy of Crewe?
That's my intention behind the whole point of bringing it up, though, that it will be for Crewe, for people in Crewe, to be hosted in Crewe by Crewe Town Council.
I think we're all kind of clear on what's being asked. It would seem that we have a line item in the budget. We're being asked to allocate or make available part of that for hosting of these events. Take it you're proposing that.
That's it.
Councillor Dunlop.
And this will be annually.
That would depend entirely on how the budget discussion goes. So at the moment, there's an allocation of £2,000 in the budget. We're being asked to make available.
No, there isn't £2,000.
No, that's been removed.
No.
There is flexibility in the budget to absorb £1,000 because the budget is quite strong. We could identify that thing that would be the first one. Rule. You're being asked tonight to support £1,000 service level agreement with Cantor, the local twinning association, to support hosting visitors from our twin town in Crewe. And they asked to support that tonight as a proposal and second proposal. So that's where you're at right now. Then we will go through the budget setting process as we do every year. And in that, you'll be offered the opportunity to include annually a figure should this happen annually. But you're only asked for this year's consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle. All in favour?
Can I just check you're voting down two proposals? The first proposal hasn't been voted on.
Yeah.
So that was the recommending the friendship agreements.
Yeah.
Right. I can't remember if we even got a second of that.
We did get a second.
Thank you. Can we suggest whether we're all in favour of renewing the friendship agreements as a recommendation to council? Thank you. And now making available an allocation for hosting activities. I'm going to take it that's in favour, and that's everyone, unless there's any objections. Thank you.
To abstain, please.
Thank you. Well, that brings us to the next item. Feel free to take these together, Councillor Clark.
Yeah, it was discussed at the previous meeting that we would look at some of the allocated funding that we've got within the for dementia support in the area, and also for debt counselling. Myself and Jackie have been out to various groups and looked at what the offer is in Crewe, and there is gaps within the offer, especially in the dementia and how they can be supported. And there's also, and the same with the debt counselling, there are some services which are supporting the debt counselling, but they are vastly underfunding, vastly over quite at the moment, the demand for their services. And they are supporting lots of the food banks and changing lives. And so I think that additional funding from this council would help to support the work and the need that is out there. The same with the dementia, where there are a number of organisations, Hopes and Beams, Wishing Well, Belong, who are now starting to get their services back up and running. And talking to them though that they do need support around the volunteering, around Reese. One of the things that came out of my discussion with Hopes and Beams, which we can very quickly get up and running. I already run a dementia group in Nantwich, and I have a lot of resources. And it was actually, well, let's have a dementia resource library. So all these other groups, the specialists, jigsaws and games and things that we have for people living with the condition, that we can actually share them around. So that's something that we're already, I'm going to get up and running straight away. But there was, it's additionals to that resource library that's needed. Also transportation. There are people out there who can't actually get to some of the clubs because they can't, get there physically. So it's looking at how we can support people going forward and getting them into the groups, and through the reablement services, which they all have lots of links with these groups. But again, the reablement will take them there, say, for 6 weeks. And then if they can't find alternative transportation to get them to the clubs, and the clubs really work well. I know from my experiences that people get a lot from it. The carers do, because they get that support from each other. They get to talk, get signposted to other organisations. So the cafes are not just teas and coffees and an activity. They're actually benefiting a lot of people. So I know from my experience is that a little money can go a long way with these clubs. So yes, I think Jackie's got figures in mind.
Well, we discussed it through. I spoke to Belong, which happens to be where my mum resided until she died last year. She was living with extreme dementia, and they used to run a dementia cafe, and it was amazing because they have access to an Admiral nurse. They give you access to Age UK. So the people living with dementia obviously were there, but so were all their families. And the families got to talk to each other. They got help with advice in terms of funding, social services, where to go, what to do. And one of the things that they did, which I thought was really good, is they do experience days, which come out about £70. I think it might be slightly wrong, that's roughly what it was. So I quite like the idea of, if we gave and decided to allocate some funding, that we could say, well, look, these experience days, because they're too external, they're not just within the group. Maybe they can fund a few people that just couldn't afford it and are desperate for respite while their loved one is looked after for the day. And there's all sorts of activities. So it was stuff like that we discussed. And Dawn and I kind of came, it's obviously up to you guys, but we came to kind of simplify it. We said, like, if we looked for 3 organisations within Crewe, start small, choose 3 organisations and perhaps allocate, I don't know, £1,000 to each organisation. Obviously, we draw up some sort of contract of services and make sure that we tell them our expectation. You talked about a steering group, didn't you, as well, that you wanted to form?
One of the things that talking to them is that they're not, the wider community are not aware of what is being provided, so what services are out there. So actually a seminar, a networking event of people who are providing dementia, then we can identify what gaps and actually then talk to people in adult social care in Cheshire East about exactly what, where the gaps are and how influence funding from other areas, and as well with the new integrated healthcare services, exactly how we can actually influence them. We've got to know what the gaps are. There's been a vast mapping exercise done of Nantwich, but it was missing in the Crewe area. So I'm working on people.
I think as well, one of the things that Dawn and I talked about at length was, if we start small and maybe pick on 3, as I said, and maybe we give them £1,000 each, that gives us quite a lot of feedback in terms of what's going on. In different wards, not all in the same place, but also not to just immediately say, hey, here's £1,000, but to actually just hang fire and decide how
Where
we
the
might
gaps
want
are.
to support it, identify the gaps. I mean, obviously we've named 2 that we think are pretty worthy straight away, but that leaves another one, but then we'll feed from that. And obviously it's a start small and then build on it, because you were saying about your steering group, you've obviously got a lot of knowledge, haven't you, regarding supporting people with dementia. So that was kind of where we're at, and the £1,000 each was just a figure Dawn and I kind of loosely bashed around, really. But
yeah, know what I could do with £1,000.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah,
So, yeah,
you know, it's a pretty worthy cause, but anyway.
Which I won't be asking for, because my club's in them touch the targets.
No, it's
so I won't benefit from it whatsoever.
So what, just to clarify, what actually would the proposal?
Well, the proposal is that funding be allocated to supporting dementia projects and for supporting debt cancelling projects. So I think we're looking at 3,000 for dementia, 2,000.
Yeah, 2 or 2,500
for.
Councillor Rhodes.
I support the principle of helping with debt cancelling, and I support the principle of supporting dementia, but it all seems a bit ad hoc to me. And I know that, you know, you've done some initial, what I would call initial work, that you've looked where the gaps are and, you know, you've seen what the need is. But I would much prefer to see a report with some evidence and some statistics in it. Because I think that as a council, this is something we should probably support long term, and there should be a plan that we're not just randomly giving £1,000 here and there, but we actually have a plan on how we're going to do this long term. In principle, I think it's a good idea, but I would prefer that the organisations apply to us and we knew specifically what they were going to do. Yeah, and I think it's a great idea, and I think it will support a lot of people. But as a town council, we have to bear in mind that we have to justify how we use the precept. And just saying we'd like to give £1,000 to go on doesn't necessarily make it easy for us to justify how we're using the precept. So whilst I support what you want to do, I would like a plan and some organisation around it. I know it may delay it slightly, but I think with a long-term plan, we will actually be able to actually support people better, because we'll know where we're going and what we plan to do and how we intend to grow.
Which can I just ask, which organisations provide debt counselling, are there?
So the one, I went out to Chance Changing Lives, and what they've started to do is signpost people who are obviously struggling, that's why they're there. And they use Penny Smart. So they're using Penny Smart at the moment, which they're doing. It's only quite new, which I think they're doing for free at the moment, but that isn't going to continue. So they were looking for some funding. Well, they actually didn't ask for funding, to be fair, but they were telling me about how. So what they're trying to do is self-police it. So people turn up, they'll never turn anyone away if they're hungry, but they totally accept that they have to do some housekeeping. Otherwise the money is going to run out. And when I went to see them to give them the £2,000 that we gave to them, it was one of the questions and conversations that we had. And she said, we never turn anybody away. What we do is encourage them to come in, we get to know them, we befriend people, and then we establish what the needs are and we signpost. So for me, that made perfect sense in terms of, you know, because if you just ask someone to come in, sit down, let's talk about your debt, they're never going to stay, are they? So they wait and get to know them and then gradually draw them in. And find
Christians Against Poverty are active in the
area as well. The one,
who offer money advice and courses as well to actually how to budget, how to finance, as well as that support through these.
We have given them grants in the past, I remember.
So,
but I think it would be better if we knew exactly, like you're mapping out, we knew exactly what we have, where the gaps are and what we need to fill, and what organisations might fill them. And I think that some of this responsibility is Cheshire East, and we need to consider that we're not duplicating what Cheshire East are doing. I know we we probably know what Cheshire East are doing, but we need to know that we're not duplicating what they're doing.
Well, we actually
actually have the officers from Cheshire
Yeah,
Council
yeah.
in to ask them what they're doing, and they hand out the information.
Well, I won't make any comments.
Correct me if I am wrong, Councillor Rose, because obviously I don't want to speak for you, but are you advocating that we defer any decision around this to a later date?
I'm proposing that we defer any decision, that we support, as a committee, we support the principle and we recognise the need, but we defer any allocation of funds until we have a better overall picture of the situation.
Well, in that case, we have a proposal from Councillor Clark, which is to allocate a sum of money, being £3,000 to dementia activities. Is anyone willing to second that proposal?
I would second that proposal for dementia, yes.
Would anyone be in favour of allocating that amount of money? Is anyone against allocating that amount of money? Thank you, Councillor Rhodes. Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Is anyone abstaining on that amount of money? Thank you, Councillor Buckley. What would you like to do, Councillor Clark?
I'm quite happy, because hear what Jill said, and I'm quite happy. I hear what she's saying, and I think, which is where we've come from, that actually it wasn't just about allocating funds, it's about the steering group, it was about identifying the gaps, and I'm quite happy to sort of facilitate some of that and get that information.
So to be clear, you are retracting your original proposal in favour of deferring pending further information.
I think because the proposal is that we're mindful that we will be supporting dementia with some funding, so I'm mindful that the counter proposal is actually not saying don't give them any money, it's actually saying let's have some more information, let's have that, which is what which is what I'm stating anyway, that part of what we'd identified, that we need to sit organisations down and provide services and find out where the gaps are.
Okay.
And perhaps we was foolish in actually mentioning 2 organisations, but it's where the gaps are and who can facilitate the services with those gaps.
So we have a proposal to seek further information around how the town council might support dementia activities. Town Clerk.
Sorry to interrupt. I wonder if the proposal was worded that the committee supports the principle of supporting both these causes, but seeks a detailed report from officers to give an options appraisal how it might better be delivered.
That sounds.
Because I think to support dementia, you don't want a 12-month thing. You want to build organisations that can support dementia in the long term, and you don't do that with short-term money.
Right.
And I'm quite happy that it's for a long term.
Okay.
So then you would need a second.
I'll second that one, forget the first one, the second bit.
Thank
Does that make sense? I've got notes here at this
So is that for the dementia, for the debt?
Well, I mean, isn't that
I think they've been taken as a joint proposal. Both items 9.2 and 9.3 will consider jointly, so they'll be taken as a joint proposal. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'm certainly happy with that approach.
And we have a second.
Well, we've definitely got a proposer. We've had several things seconded by somebody. Generally speaking, are we all in favour?
Yes.
Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much, particularly to Councillor Clark for your work around this and bringing the item forward. Do appreciate it. That brings us to item 10, which is more money. It's just to provide an update to members on the progress of the business delivery plan. Fire away.
Okay, so as you're all aware, in last year's budget we bought 5 defibrillators, 3 of those have been sited, one at Blitz, one at Wishing Well, and one at the Cheese Hall pub. We would have preferred to put it on the Market Hall, but we couldn't because it's a listed building, so we put it on the Cheese Hall pub. The next one, I'm just waiting for various permissions to come through from landlords. The next one's going on the Card Factory, hopefully, once I've got permissions on the Card Factory at Grand Junction Retail Park, and also Health Box on the Sherborne estate. So everyone's in favour of that. I'm just waiting for the written permissions that we can drill into their wall and fit it. There are a couple of pictures if you want to have a nose at where they are, page 85, 86. They were funded from the Health and Wellbeing Project. You kindly agreed to fund another 5 in this financial year. So my plan is to start that project in September and fit 1 a month. I had North West Ambulance first responder in the guy who used to cover Crewe. He now doesn't cover Crewe, but he has vast knowledge of the areas of Crewe, who has a DFib, who doesn't. And I spent some time with him and just said, give me your wish list. Tell me where you would put 5 defibrillators. So it was quite nice because he detailed the different wards and the different areas, which I will share with you before September so that you know where they're all going. So it's my job now to identify where they will go in each area that he has suggested. I've been in touch as well with North West Ambulance because I feel that we're doing this project, we're fitting 10 defibrillators and I want to see a bit more from them. I'd like to see on their social media what we're doing. Things like in a cabinet, you should have, you know, scissors and a razor blade and what have we. And it's all stuff they have on their shelves. So I'm after trying to get them to just fund those so we can pop 1 in each cabinet. They're only like 20, 30 quid a set, but I'm going to try. If I can't get it, I can't get it, but it's always worth asking.
If anyone can, you can.
Well, you know, here we go. So yeah, that's been a really nice one. Obviously it's gone down very well. Everybody loves to see the DFib, and we've had some great comms feedback on that. Comms comms team has done a great job in promoting that for us. So happy with that one. Pop up in the park project. So Ben and I went along to see Wishing Well, and we also spoke to the Lifestyle Centre because you agreed to fund £5,000 for 2.5 from social isolation, 2.5 from health and wellbeing, and it's really about fitness and identifying the hard to reach groups. So we went through a scoring system, and Pete, Ben and I, and Wishing Well came out on top, and they started this week. So the first one was in Queen Street Park. I asked them to stay away from Queen's Park and from the Georges because everyone does everything there, and I asked them to go around. So they're at Derby Docks tomorrow, and what was the other one tonight? Samuel Street tonight. So they're popping up between 4 and 5. The first one they did, they got 14 attendees, if you like, and they're going to be promoting it. So we asked if you could just have a week to just get it all going, and then I plan quite a big social media campaign, really, just to tell everybody exactly what we're doing and that we're working in partnership. I feel it covers lots of different demographics. So I've asked them to look at the elderly, the person that's still sat in their house because they're still afraid to come out because of COVID. Young mums, dads, whatever, with young children, you know, not making it about a personal trainer lifting weights, but actually just engaging with them. And from that, they'll signpost as well. If they pick up on anything, they'll signpost to the relevant sort of organisations. I've asked for full feedback, so they will take a list of everybody who attends, so we can evaluate it. It's a pilot project. It runs from now until October, 3 times a week in 3 different parks. That's their commitment to us, that's on their proposal. The total project cost was £11,000, and we funded 5 of that, and Wishing Well are putting in the rest. So it looks to be, you know, a really good project, and I'm hoping that it does reach all the people that it is intended to reach. Yeah, and all the details of the proposal are on there if anyone would like to have a nose.
Councillor Y and then Councillor Clark.
Well, could you just put the information, the Cheshire East Health Service, Wellbeing Service, I've got an £80,000 pilot project for social prescribing for health, which is exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
So if it's GP services, I'm sure they would publicise this and also prescribe them for their patients. And it'd be really interesting to keep an eye on the uptake of this, because that will inform the bigger project, which will be 800,000.
Brilliant. Okay.
Thank you for that.
Thank
Councillor
you.
Clark.
I was just really, it's important the uptake of them, because the timing is in 4 till 5. That is going to exclude a lot of
what they're saying is they're happy
age
to move
ranges.
They're happy to move the time. So they've gone for 4 till 5 because in the summer they run their own children's summer clubs, and he was keen to differentiate. So he said, you know, if I put it in a park at 2 o'clock, I'm going to have a bunch of kids, the same bunch of kids turning up. So he was trying to reach different groups of people, but he's more than happy to be flexible. If that doesn't work, he'll try a different time. If one park works really well and another one doesn't, he'll put more into that park. And I've just asked, well, we've just asked them, you know, just to try, don't just use Queen's Park, just go and use different places and feedback to us. And I have a good relationship with Wish and Well, and I speak to them regularly, so I'll get that feedback for you.
Yeah, it's just when you said you wanted to target young mums and older
it's
people,
a weird,
4 till 5 is
Yeah.
not going to target a young mum or your older person, is it? So that was just really, is it in the trial period, we can have who's coming, what age range that the, you know, is attending, so we can actually see if it is targeting the people that you know we're trying to target.
But I mean, it's precisely that, you know, we're going to be running this for 13 weeks.
October, middle of October, light permitting. It will change then, of course, because it'll be dark then. So.
But by that time, you know, we will be in the middle of budget setting conversations, and, you know, hopefully it'll generate some usable data, which would indicate to us how well it's doing, what the longevity of it is, and certainly the demographics. Any other questions or comments on that one? No?
Yeah, okay. So moving on our website at the moment, you approved £2,500 to spend against male mental health. So on our website at the moment, and also on our social media, we are inviting expressions of interest from local groups, and I'm asking them to tell me, you know, how many people it would benefit in Crewe, how they plan to identify those people, what they'll use the money for, what difference the money will make, etc., etc. I spent some time today with Mentel. I went over to the market hall because there was a hub on today, which was really poorly attended, which was a shame. But I spent some time with Mentel going through what they do. I've had one expression of interest in, and I know I've got 2 or 3 more on the way. So once we get all those in, obviously we'll look at a scoring system for those and allocate those funds accordingly. There's another one about to go out, which you also approved for £2,500, which is to support young adults who are vulnerable. So I've just written the brief for that today. It's very similar to this one, only it refers to young adults, and that will be going out in the next week or so. And I usually put about a month, a close date of about a month, and then we'll go through the same process. So that will really take me to a point where I have allocated the funding that you approved at the last meeting. So I've been out, tried to be proactive and go out and find those people, and hence looking at more things to fund. So in the September meeting, I'm starting to make some notes on where I think it might be useful for you to consider. But if anyone has any ideas of where they would like to see the remaining budget spent in the September meeting, that if you could give it some thought before then, that would be fantastic. Okay. Any questions on that? No? Okay. So food bank update. You funded £5,000 to support food banks. So I went out to St Paul's and had a look at what they do and fantastic things that they do. And I also went out to Chance Changing Lives, and we gave them £2,000 each. And they were very, very grateful, and obviously it will be spent wisely. Since then, we've also given an additional £200 to Chance Changing Lives we termed it to support a dignity project, and it's basically for new underwear for people that don't have underwear. So they were going to go out and buy lots and lots of underwear. So people that go to their community pantry, because they have access there to free sanitary products and whatever, and they can obviously choose however much they want and need. But underwear is something that's really missing. So yeah, we gave them an extra £200 for a dignity project, which went out a couple of weeks ago. The Verdon Oaks project update, that was something that's been sort of hanging around for a while. The notice board that was all approved by you all some time ago last year is now ready, and I've liaised with Paul Blurton, who proposed it, and obviously Tom was involved as well there, and that's all being fitted on July the 19th, and we'll get Nan to go out and unveil it, and a couple of local historians will be there, and apparently there's still some little small oaks that are not park ready, and they're with the Scoutmaster, so they're going to come along as well, and then all the data, because they can't have it all on a board, it's quite a small board, all the data will then go on our website, and on the board it will show a link to our website, and there'll be photographs and whatever. And again, comms have been really fantastic in getting behind that, and it's quite a lot of work that one for them, so yeah, all good. All good. Yeah, all good there. On page 90, I did just a memorial garden just update, so we went out, didn't you? You obviously went and in your capacity as mayor, cut the ribbon, and I went out with Suzanne from comms, and it's now open, and I don't know if any have seen it, it's absolutely lovely. They've fitted new trees, and it is just for the people that couldn't have funerals to go and sit and remember, and it's a really peaceful, lovely place to go. So
just on that one, Jackie, obviously I've not had a chance to tell the committee, but one of the things that I did in the latter stages of being there, I attended a meeting just across here at Salvation Army Hall with the Marks and Spencer's retired ladies.
Oh yeah,
and it was quite a good afternoon actually. It was lovely. I was asked to give a little talk, and I just winged that. I just talked about being a councillor and being the mayor and various other things. Had a cup of tea, thought, well, that's it. And then, I'll tell you what, most of the MPs in Westminster deal with them survived what I had to survive. Because you talk about the hustings. We just have a few questions for you, councillor. Why did you move the wall memorial? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? And so on. And it was great. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was lovely. But what I was going to say was reference to what Jackie's just been referring to. They did say during the course of the meeting, they lost one of their colleagues, and they had agreed that now that the town council had opened the thing in the cemetery, they were all going to go and sit on these benches and talk about said colleagues, which I thought was that's what it was intended for. Yeah. So the two things, thank you very much for supporting it and providing money for it. And I can assure you, well, certainly by the name from Marks and Spencer's, that it's certainly really good to, it's good to commit to one. So, thanks again.
Any questions on any of that?
Well, obviously, I would like to thank the committee for being proactive and ambitious, and I'm sure everyone will join me in thanking our community and funding officer for especially being relentlessly proactive around the DFIBs. You know, they are flying out the door, you know, and it's good work.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well done, Jack.
Thank you.
That brings us to item 11, Unless there's anything else you wanted to.
No, I don't think so. It was just consideration, so I just again ask you all to consider any projects for the remaining unallocated budget, and if you just have a think about that, by all means just come to me at any point with any of that, and then I can investigate and look into it and provide the data that you will need in time for the next meeting, hopefully. That's it. Next one, yes.
Yeah, item 11, to consider matters related to Armistice Day school services.
Okay, that's on page 92. So one of the things that we as a council really have been trying to do is engage with the schools a lot more. And this ties in really nicely with O&I and with M&E as well. And we funded, so when it was International Women's Day, we funded books about inspirational women, or marketing events funded books about inspirational women, and they went out to every school, and these were received really, really well. And it was lovely for us because we got to share it on comms, and it was just a really lovely project. O&I have sent out learning resource for Heritage. Vicky, our Heritage Officer, has been involved in that heavily. And that's gone down fantastically well as well. We've recently sent out through M&E again trees to commemorate the Jubilee to every single school. So we are really trying hard to just engage with all the schools, and it's gradually happening. They're starting to talk to us. If you remember last year, because of COVID, when we were planning the Remembrance Sunday service, we were trying to minimise numbers and not mixed demographics, and the schools love the Remembrance service. It's something that they all really look forward to, as of course do the veterans. So we, for the first time, ran a separate service. I think it was the first time on my road. I think we may have done it actually once before, but we did a separate service for schools on Armistice Day, and we kept Remembrance Sunday to the Sunday. And we invited the schools along, and we explained to them that, you know, this is what we're doing to keep everybody safe. And they absolutely loved it. And they've all asked, are we going to do this again? So with that in mind, I thought, okay, let's have a look at how we can do it better and be more inclusive and ride the wave of this Happy Schools and Council. So I went to the same person who wrote the Heritage Learning Resource Packs and asked her, would she put together a proposal? And the idea is that in July, if you approve it, it's £900. I contact the schools and I say, right, this is happening, and we're still going to do it on the 11th, but we're also going to provide you, in addition to the stuff you can get on the RBL website, we're going to provide you with stuff that you can use across the schools in your classrooms. And they're going to focus on 4 people in Crewe who are buried here, who've served, so that it can be taught in the classrooms. They're also going to include in that how to make your own wreath, and we'll get the mayor to judge it. So each school would make their own wreath, and there's going to be full instructions on how that would happen, because the teachers love that. They don't want to know about it, to plan it all themselves because they've got enough to do. And the same with poppies, and maybe just generally. So I'm just looking for more engagement with schools. So this would be a downloadable resource. So in July, I would let the schools know that we're going to be doing it, so that they could have it early September so they can lesson plan. And it will be a downloadable resource that lives forever, really. It's there forever, and it can be used by any school. But we would only send it out to the schools within our boundary. But of course it could be used. If Sandbach schools wanted to use it, then they could, of course, that's up to them. It's not us sending out packs. It's a, you know, it was a really nice, just a really lovely idea, and she's throwing ideas at me at the moment, so I can go back to her and talk to her. So what I'm asking for is approval to spend £900 on that resource.
Councillor Clark.
Cheshire East Council did this in 2014. There is also resources packs. Mark Potts also did a number of studies on Crewe, the village of Russell twins. It escapes me, this book that was on Mantwich Road, and his son's Richmond lost. So there is also quite a number, and Cheshire East did all the link to the Cheshire Archives services, where so
that
She's because
website is, I won't say, let's not duplicate what's already there, because those resources are all, if we're going to spend £900 on this, let's spend it on something which enhances what is already there. So I think asking her to sort of find out on the Cheshire East website on the answer, because there's loads of banks of photographs, and the schools all did letters writing then at the time, and letters to loved ones in the trenches, and we did a lot of trench art, and we did a lot of plays and everything already. So there's all that resources, but I know those children have moved on and we're targeting a number of different areas, but there is, I'd like to see that if we're going to spend on that, it's actually adding to the bank of resources that was already available.
Because it's obviously perfectly right suggestion as you're making, because she did the heritage one, she was already in touch, I think, with Mark Potts, and also in a couple of the others. The £900 is a maximum. So if you agree the £900, she'll come and see me, and I'll sit down with her and we'll go through exactly the things that we would like to see. Obviously we want our branding all over it. It sort of just piggybacks nicely all the things we've done with the schools, but of course I'll connect her with the RBL. We're aware that on the RBL website there's a really good resource, but it's very general. So this would be about Crewe, so that you could go out to the Crewe schools. So
we have a film about Crewe that was made about at the time, an original piece of music which was written at the time.
Well, I'll tap into you, Dawn, if you approve it. I'll have a chat with you about it.
CDs in my we had a lot of them. So yes, there's lots of resources that are still available, so I think that we can put those into them.
That would be great, thank you. So,
Councillor Watt.
I just want to check, there were 2 heritage resources that came out around the same time. This is from the lady who's done the really
Francesca Chinnery, exactly the same lady. They're really well detailed and well put together, and they've gone down so well. So yes.
And the other thing is, I think it's really good that we're engaged with the schools, because they are starting to. But I wonder if there's a way of building into this a sort of a subcontractor where you get to have conversations with some of the school teachers as you're going along, because the schools will trust something that they've had a hand in building a bit more, whereas if it's, the funding doesn't really allow for a lot of consultation at all, but there might be something that, I think it will be better for it, give it a longer lasting thing, because as Dawn says, every couple of years somebody goes out to schools, and I go to schools nearly every day at the moment. Every shelf and stuff, and there's a box of stuff. Some of the stuff that I did years ago as well that isn't used, so it's getting it to be part of society.
As well as the link with Ukraine, isn't that we've got to be conscious that there's going to be Ukraine children within our schools. You know, there's already 40, isn't there? Coming into the schools, so
we need to make it
talking about war and making that link from the past to the present day as well. Is perhaps something, it's not just historically, is the support that we can make those links as well.
Would anybody go Councillor Rhodes?
On here it says schools service. So are you planning a service like you had last year?
Yeah, so it would all culminate into a service for schools again. It's just that the teachers would get a resource to talk to the children about it. They'd all have instructions on how to make their own wreaths. We get them there along to the service. The children come along with their wreaths and poppies and whatever. Lots of press, if you like, for us, for Crewe Town Council. And then when it's over, obviously then they close off, but they build it into their curriculum in the run up to the service, and then attend the service and take part.
Thank you.
Okay.
Would anybody like to propose? Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Thank you, Councillor Edwards. All in favour? That's lovely. Thank you very much. That brings us to item 12, which is to note the proposed date of the next meeting being Tuesday, the 12th of September at 6 p.m. Location and format to be confirmed. Thank you very much all for your participation. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you to anyone that's decided to watch. And have a safe journey home and enjoy the rest of your night.